Welcome to EQ Conversations, the podcast that delves into the fascinating world of emotional intelligence and empathy, with your host, Dr. Rahim Lay. He will provide you with extraordinary content on these crucial aspects of human interaction and more. It's time to cultivate your emotional intelligence. Here's Dr. Lay.
Welcome everyone to the first episode of EQ Conversations. Here we are embarking on this fascinating, remarkable skill known as emotional intelligence, or EQ. I am your host, Dr. Lay. I am a licensed clinical social worker by discipline, a psychotherapist, and I've dedicated a lot of my time, my energy, into improving the lives of both military veterans and many others. I am a 20-year vet with the military, 22 years if you include my reserve time. But today, I want to introduce you to the world of emotional intelligence and shed light on why it should serve as the cornerstone of every individual's life. Okay, but before we dive into emotional intelligence, I do want to just share a little bit about me and how I came to be in a position that I am now. But I grew up in Newark, New Jersey, the Brick City. Um, I don't know if it's actually still called the Brick City. They may have changed that because Newark, in and of itself, has changed for the better, I believe. So I'm not sure they still call it the Brick City, but I'm a Gen X and we refer to it as the Brick City. And so that is home for me. Raised single parent household, had plenty of cousins and family and support around me. Was not raised by my mom and dad, raised by my mom's sister. And so life really made it difficult, if you will, for my mom and dad to be in me and my brother's lives. But nevertheless, I made a conscious choice to persevere and focus on becoming a product of my environment rather than succumbing to the circumstances surrounding me. Right. And so throughout my journey, I had the opportunity, to study at the University of Mississippi, Ole Miss, hotty toddy for my Mississippi people. As a student athlete on the track and field, I had an athletic scholarship. But following the completion of my undergraduate studies, I did enlist into the Army as an infantryman, taking on various occupational specialties. And, during that time, I challenged myself, going through rigorous challenges like Ranger School, Airborne, Air Assault. Let me tell you, Air Assault, well, you know what? This is not the platform for that, but Air Assault is no joke. But after my first stint in the Army, I did decide to return back to the academic world and pursue my master's in clinical social work from the University of Tennessee. College of Social Work there. Had a great time, good support staff and everything. I held a strong interest in advocacy and a deep desire to make a positive impact in society. So when I had to choose my major, going back to my undergraduate, was such an interesting story, because when choosing my major and just being put on the spot as far as what are you going to major in, and I'm sitting there like, I don't know. And the first thing that came to mind was social work. And before you all, whoever's listening, before you trip out, it's like, what? For a guy? Because let's face it, social work is not the ideal profession for a lot of men. Men are not quick to go into that field. But I am going to be using this platform to not only promote more male engagement in the field of social work, majoring in the field of social work, but becoming psychotherapists as well, because I really do think that we're missing our footprint in this field of work. But I told you I grew up with my aunt, and in Newark, New Jersey, back in the 70s and 80s, if you were not raised by your biological mom and dad, if I understand it correctly, the state will still put you in foster care. You will still be under the foster care guidance, even though you're living with extended family. But what does this have to do with social work? Well, my brother and I were given a social worker. We had a couple of them in a span of like a decade, maybe a little bit more than a decade. And these individuals will come into our lives and pretty much just kind of monitor us, if you will, making sure that our quality of life was good. And I just remember them introducing themselves and representing themselves as social workers. So that was the first profession. My aunt was a home health nurse, but that was the first profession that I constantly um, learned from, I guess you would say. That people were very impactful. The social workers that were in my life were very impactful. So yes, fast forward to my uh, orientation um, orientation day and figuring out what I'm going to major in. Social work just came to mind. So I quickly learned that it's really important during that time after I graduated, even though I was in the Army and I was enlisted, I wasn't doing anything in the field of social work. But I did learn early on that, okay, in order to have an impact in social work, you really do have to go back and get your master's. So I did go enroll back into school, went to University of Tennessee, the Bleeding Orange, kept it in the SEC, and I got my master's there. Um, Soon after, I went and got licensed. I did, however, after graduate school, I did jump back into I went from ready reserve to active duty Army, ended up deploying. I actually ran into social workers down there who were mental health providers. They were in the Air Force, and I'm like, wow, I didn't even know Air Force had social workers. And so they put me in contact with a recruiter. Lo and behold, yes, I get commissioned as an officer in the Air Force, as a clinician. So, um, so that was my introduction into the field of psychotherapy, and really it transitioned my life greatly. Um, um, Throughout my military experience, you go through leadership, you're seeing patients, you're trying to do um, the good, if you will, when it comes to you want to do right by other military members, their families. But I did step up and take on another challenge, which I went back and got my doctorate. Now, I didn't stay in the SEC. I ended up going to the University of Southern California and completing my doctorate in social work. And throughout my research experience in the doctoral program, I really focused a lot on empathy and the impact, the power of empathy as it relates to establishing greater intergroup contact with two groups from different parts, coming together and learning how to understand and get along with one another. And out of that empathy, emotional intelligence then became a second interest of mine. And I realized that as a clinician, as a military officer, and having my fair share of poor relationship management, I knew that I was missing some critical pieces in my life, in my development, and they were rooted in empathy and emotional intelligence. And there may be some of you out there who can relate. You may be going through things at work or realizing that your relationships are not as successful. You've had a lot of failed relationships, and a lot of the times it's a lot of our inability to manage our own emotions, right? So um, I think that this conversation needs to be had, and along with talking about emotional intelligence, we are going to be speaking to a lot of experts in the field of emotional intelligence and empathy. And we're going to, you're going to get to see these interviews. If you want to see the video footage of these interviews, you can follow my YouTube channel at EQ Conversations. I'm also on IG. I'm also on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn with EQ Conversations. LinkedIn is Raheem Lay, but um, all the other social media platforms, you can find this footage on EQ Conversations. Okay. And so my vision for this platform is just expanding. I really do want to expand beyond just a podcast. Um, I already created some courses related to empathy and emotional intelligence. I'm finalizing an academy that's dedicated to managing emotions naturally, also known as MEN. That's the acronym, where I focus on improving the emotional intelligence and empathy foundation for young boys as young as 14, all the way up in adult men. I do feel like men, we have a responsibility to society to be the best version of ourselves. And I think with emotional intelligence and empathy, that'll be a great foundational place to start. Okay. Um, and with that foundation being solid, you can't go nowhere but up. But I am expanding that and looking at, of course, being just as inclusive, if you will, by focusing on women as well, because I think any and every one of us can stand from benefiting from emotional intelligence and empathy. So, but for the right now, my target audience um, that I've been at least gearing my academy towards is focusing on men at that time at this time. But I have so much other material that's going to be coming out, that's going to be dropping soon, very soon. I also have a book entitled Empathy Has No Rank that's going to be dropping September 18th, Air Force birthday of this year. And in this book, I really focus on the employment of empathy, whether it's a leadership of many or leadership of yourself, and knowing that regardless of what rank, and it doesn't have to be just military, even though I do reference a lot of military examples in this book, but it can be in any leadership or any organization, in the academic institutions, all the way up to CEOs, or individuals who are just wanting to learn and have the opportunity um, to learn about different skills when it comes to being an effective communicator, being more understanding with individuals, learning social cues, learning how to read rooms, learning how to manage relationships. Um, but the main thing is learning how to understand not only your emotions but the emotions of others. I think that that's where our strength will lie when it comes to improving the overall relationship, um, in society. So, but that's where I'm headed with this. And the podcast is just a piece of it, right? So we want to, discovering that power of emotional intelligence and empathy. It really was just the beginning for me. The more I delved into the studies, the stronger the connection became between the necessity of emotional intelligence in our society. And so, and in fact, I would argue that EQ may surpass IQ in terms of determining an individual's impact on society. It's EQ is either equal to or greater than IQ, right? Now, you may be wondering what exactly is emotional intelligence and why is it so crucial? But engage in that conversation for a second, right? And explore the incredible benefits of developing emotional intelligence in our everyday lives. And so, throughout this podcast series, we will delve into practical tools and strategies that you can utilize to enhance your emotional intelligence and lead a more fulfilling life. But I want to discuss with you the importance of all of us focusing on enhancing our emotional intelligence skills. And so you might be asking, like, what is emotional intelligence and why should I care about it? And I just want to break down some reasons as to why you should and why this should be a priority in your life. First of all, emotional intelligence, often referred to as EQ, it encompasses our ability to understand and manage our own emotions while effectively navigating the emotions of others. Okay, so it entails being aware of our own feelings, recognizing them in others, and utilizing that awareness to guide our thoughts and essentially our actions. Okay, now you may be thinking like, why should I bother with emotional intelligence? I'm doing just fine without it, and many are managing, many are using emotional intelligence skills and don't even know it, which I think is I mean, of course, it's a benefit. That means that somebody taught them how to respond appropriately, if you will, to their emotions when dealing with other people, right? But allow me to assure you that by developing, your emotional intelligence, you can have a profound impact on various aspects of your life. And so, here just a few reasons. First and foremost, emotional intelligence, it enriches your relationships. Okay. Whether it's your personal connections with loved ones, and that can be friendship, that can be your professional, or your professional associations, it's just understanding and managing emotions play a pivotal role. So when you possess a high EQ, you can empathize with others more effectively. You can communicate with clarity. You can forge deeper connections. And I think essentially that's what we're literally looking for. I think we have a lot of different outbursts and emotional expression, if you will, that's causing significant pain, not only to ourselves but to others, right? But I want you to become attuned to the needs and emotions of those around you, and EQ can help you foster that trust. It can help you foster a better understanding, and it can help you establish healthier, interactions. And so emotional intelligence, it's like it's significantly, uh, well, it contributes to your personal well-being, right? So when you are tuned in with your emotions, you can better manage your own stress level. You can actually handle conflict constructively, and you can make more informed decisions, right? So by comprehending, your own emotional triggers and patterns, you gain a greater control over your reaction. And, honestly, you can approach challenges with a composed mindset. And I think being able to control your reaction to things is pivotal when it comes to relationships. Okay. But also in the workplace, I think the workplace is another realm where emotional intelligence shines brightly. And that's honestly where I um, got exposed, if you will, to emotional intelligence, or the lack of emotional intelligence in myself was in the work environment, right? So employers um, who highly value individuals with strong EQ, because they tend to be exceptional team players, they tend to be effective leaders, and they tend to really have good skills in communicating, right? Something I just did not have. And so when you possess emotional intelligence, you are more likely to actively listen. You are more likely to diplomatically resolve conflicts, right? And you are more likely to collaborate with colleagues. Um, and so these skills not only foster your professional growth, but also contribute to a positive, productive work environment. And then just to go a little bit further with that, emotional intelligence also fosters resilience, right? Man, life can be so tough on us. We experience these ups and downs, and when having a high EQ enables us to bounce back from setbacks more swiftly. And that's really what it boils down to. We have to get back on track as quickly as possible, because life is not going to be at a standstill, right? So you develop the ability to adapt to change, you embrace challenges as opportunities for growth, and you maintain positive, outlook even in the face of adversity. Okay, so this resilience empowers you to overcome obstacles, and continue moving forward with determination and, quite frankly, grace. So, you know, I mean, that's the short and sweet. But as you can see, there are a myriad benefits, if you will, to focusing on enhancing your emotional intelligence skills. So they positively impact your relationships, your personal well-being, as we stated, like your professional success, and then your overall resilience, right? So it's a lifelong journey of self-awareness, of empathy, and just continuous growth. And I think at the end of the day, we all want that continuous growth. We want to see that we're better today than we were yesterday. And so I need you to remember that emotional intelligence isn't about suppressing or disregarding emotions, but it is more about understanding and acknowledging and channeling them in a manner that aligns with your greater goals. Right. So, let's wholeheartedly embrace the power of EQ, and let's start to unlock our full potential, in every facet of our lives. Right. So thank you for joining me um, on this introduction of EQ conversations. I'm trying to keep my um, trying to keep each session under 30 minutes, because I can just go, but I want to try to space myself out really, and um, not get too inundated with so much information, because I a lot of stuff is in my head, but a lot of stuff is written down, and it's just, I gotta figure those things out. But I do thank you for listening. If you're excuse me, if you are still listening to the end, I appreciate your time and attention. I hope that this podcast can be enlightening to you, and I really do hope that you come away learning something, feeling inspired to employ these skills. In the next episode, I will be talking about self awareness. I'm going to break down self awareness, why it's important, how it's very impactful in our lives, and share some examples as well. And then once we start getting into interviews with experts, excuse me, I'm going to, I think that we all will come away with these skills and be ready to employ a lot of these skills in the future, so that, again, today can be better than yesterday. Right. So until next time, keep exploring, learning, and growing on your EQ journey. Right.
Thank you for tuning in to EQ Conversations with Dr. Rahim Lay and embarking on this transformative journey with us. Stay tuned for upcoming episodes where we'll dive deeper into the fascinating world of emotional intelligence and empathy. Until next time, remember to be kind to yourself and others, and always strive to cultivate your emotional intelligence.